Hi, Sharon Bovat. Okay, I got a little off topic. I was originally talking about the Renault spy scandal and why Carlos Ghosn and Nissan and the CIA have terrorized me. And I ended up talking about Mike Doris, the FBI agent that I dated, who hunted bin Laden and could have stopped 9/11 from happening had he not been lied to by the CIA. So it's Mike Doris. He now works for Stratfor. So he's a nice guy. Haven't seen him since the 90s. Decent person. What can I say about him except friends of his have given me information, and I got the information to save 3 men that were falsely accused of being spies at Renault. Google Renault spy scandal and you'll see about these men that were accused of taking electric car technology, and they were going to be why Renault wasn't going to be as successful with the electric car because of espionage. Well, it was all trumped up, and the people connected to Mike told me that the banking documents hadn't been created. You see, Mike actually left working at the FBI, and he went to work for, I guess, Stratfor, and I actually emailed him. I got his email address from WikiLeaks. So, Julian Assange, thank you for that address. Kind of creepy. I know a lot of people that like Julian Assange. I know people that hate him, you know, so it's kind of like Snowden. There's like no middle. I'm like in the middle for everything. But I'm grateful you got me Mike Doris's email, so thank you. When I was in the UK, I almost stopped by the embassy in Ecuador, but I knew that it would be kind of a controversial thing, so I didn't do that because I knew I was watched. But anyway, back off topic or on topic for the Renault spy scandal. So Ghosn had taken money from the UK, from America, from France, from Portugal, from all these different places for this electric car that he knew would fail, but the company was going bankrupt, needed the cash. And then he wanted to show why the electric car was going to be a failure, and that was because of these 3 men that spied. Yeah, and so what happened was, this was bizarre, is that they were accused of spying. I got the information from people connected to Mike that they hadn't created the fake documents. Turns out Mike then was, I didn't know at that time that he was working at Credit Suisse, but I don't think they were the ones doing the fake docs. But the fake docs were definitely connected to people involved with Nazis, and I know Credit Suisse is one of them. But so was UBS, so were Deutsche, everybody connected to Nazis. I mean, Nazis. The Nazis, they're still doing well. I think eventually we'll rewrite history and the Nazis would have won World War II. I think that's what Henry Kissinger would have wanted. I only say that. I'm not being mean or anything, but you start looking at the history books and what they're doing in Texas, and what they're doing is that there are these Holocaust deniers, and I mean the Holocaust really happened, okay, and it really upsets me that people are denying it. But I was told that people in the intelligence community are purposely leaving things out of the history books, so they're going to rewrite history. So history is being rewritten. I mean, the Japanese committed no war crimes according to our history, and well, now it's weird. It's like we're apologizing for the internment camps, which we should do, but people that worked at those internment camps and people told me about what was going on are like, Sharon, the Japanese were committing major atrocities against the Chinese. Okay, so there were atrocities happening that people don't know about because they're not allowed in the history books. I mean, the one good thing about Germany is that they committed atrocities and they're apologetic about it. They're making their kids learn about it. But in America, when we commit atrocities, we don't talk about it. Shh. You know, Condor it's not classified. I know about it. And also the stuff about whacking Oscar Romero, everybody knows it was the CIA. And I mean, we've never apologized, but we're never going to apologize. I mean, but I've apologized to people. I actually had one lady from Central America. She sought me out and she started screaming at me because we destroyed her family and her life and blah, 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 blah. And I let her scream at me. And I just said, I'm sorry. I said, I had nothing to do with that, and if you want to keep screaming at me, you can. And we ended up hugging. I mean, because, you know, you kind of realize that, you know, I mean, heck, my life isn't that great. Her life's not that great. And you know what? It's not my fault her life sucks, and it's not her fault. I don't know, maybe it's my family's fault. That's not my fault. But, you know, I mean, I don't know what they did. But, so anyways, I'm getting off to, so anyways, Renault has a big thing in Brazil, and that was big with Condor too. So I could go more into Condor, but I think that pisses people off, so I won't do that. So anyways, I found out these men were innocent, and I bought this domain, Freedom for the Renault 3, and I bought it in early January. I did a press release, and even after that, Carlos Ghosn, the Nissan CEO, in January, late January, I think it was January 24th or 28th, Carlos Ghosn went on national TV in France and said he had multiple proofs the men at Renault were guilty of spying for the electric car. Multiple proofs. And those proofs had not been manufactured. And I knew that. And I did a press release and I blogged about it and I bought the domain Freedom for the Renault 3. I was right. And you know what? They didn't do the false docs, and those men were vindicated, and those men got settlements, and I was told by an FBI dude I should expect the same settlement those men got. And I mean, I'm like, whatever, you know. I made a deal with Carlos Tavares that once he became CEO, I would get so much per month for blogging, because my whole blogs were set up. It was like a black op, because Sayakawa was going to be the heir apparent to Ghosn, and I told Mr. Tavares that. Now, I did not know at the time that Tavares was related to the Prime Minister of Portugal, and I was at the Carnation Revolution. I was running drug money. My mother was, we went to the Carnation Revolution. I've got my passport and a stamp, and we went to the Carnation Revolution in the 70s. That was when they did that peaceful protest and the CIA manipulated people. And so I don't know what I was delivering, but it was, you know, one of those trips, like my Southeast Asia trips. And so at the end of the day, I was used for black op because some guy wanted to be an auto exec. And then what happened is that my black op then got taken over by these other people that wanted to expose the global good old boy network. And then Renault got nervous, and that's when they started accusing people of being spies, and they started accusing people 6 months prior. So the same time that I started getting jailed in 2010 in the summer was the same time they started making the paper trail to frame these spies. And they weren't spies, okay? So these men were they started doing the paper trail to blame the electric car failure on these men the same time they were jailing me to discredit me. And I was told by an Iranian source, that knew Catherine Perez, that she and Nissan execs are running around Tennessee telling people that I was doing espionage and spying, but you know, people just didn't buy that in Tennessee. They decided that they could discredit me a lot easier by calling me a lesbian, and they did it. And I fought back. I finally said, you know what, I'm not a lesbian, but you know what, there's nothing wrong with being a lesbian. But what they did to me was just horrible, because I have a child, and the reason why they stopped calling me a lesbian is because somebody wanted to date me. Yeah. And I won't go into him because he might run for president, but yeah. He left Tipper, and I was asked to date him in June 2010, and I was asked, and I thought it was a joke. I mean, seriously, if you had been vlogging, and I started looking at when I was asked to date him, and it turns out that I was asked to date him before I started getting jailed. I have had so much going on, but then I was told by Mark Silverman that the charges would have been dropped had I dated him. Mark Silverman was the Ben Bradley winner that was the editor of the Gannett Tennessean that knew about my story and was vetting my story. And then I started reading derogatory comments that Silverman made against Gore. And it turns out Silverman was in this clique. But the clique stemmed from Howard Baker. And I knew that John Siegenthaler was connected because of University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And this is where it gets really cloudy for me, because I don't know. I don't know what the story is. I do know that Gore was taking money, and he took money to build Fisker, but then and he was upset when Fisker didn't succeed. I knew that he liked my blogs. I knew that he liked the fact that I was a former researcher for Karl Rove Operatives that was telling the truth. Yeah, some of us do tell the truth. But, you know, it's just, I don't get it. I don't understand that whole part. You know, when I started, in my mind it went one direction because I was mad at Al Gore, because what he did was he could have saved me from the judicial harassment. And he did ultimately save me. I had judges that were just going to jail me, jail me, jail me. I had 19 months of being bullied in the courts. And Judge Jeff Bivens told me he was going to jail me for a year. This judge at Cracker Barrel, I saw him. He goes, "You're going to jail." And he said this in front of my kid. Okay? It was painful. And I had this other, then I got this new judge. 2 days before my trial, my Robbie Bill quashed all my subpoenas, and I knew I was going to jail, and I was devastated. And I had contacted somebody, and I said, I will spend the rest of my life trying to get Republicans to believe in global warming if you can help me. And so I made that vow. I said, I will do whatever you want. I will commit my life to global warming if you get me out of this. And a new judge was brought in, a special judge, Judge Kurtz. Now, okay, granted, it was a first-time misdemeanor.